The Galactic Trade Summit on Nexus Prime was a spectacle of power and prestige. Towering Krell warriors, their chitinous armor gleaming under the artificial suns, mingled with the serpentine vest diplomats whose scales shimmered in hypnotic patterns. Among the delegates, Kennedy Martinez seemed almost insignificant. A human woman barely 5 feet tall, her frame slight compared to the giants surrounding her. She stood at the negotiation table, reviewing the mineral rights contracts that Earth desperately needed. The war had left humanity's homeworld scarred, its resources depleted. This deal could mean the difference between recovery and collapse. Is this some kind of joke? The voice boomed across the chamber. Ambassador Thraken AR, a Krell commander standing nearly 9 feet tall, pointed one massive claw at Kennedy. His mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. The humans send a child to negotiate? One so small I could crush her beneath my boot. The chamber fell silent. Kennedy's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. Beside her, Josiah Chun, the human military liaison, placed a warning hand on her shoulder. His dark eyes flashed with barely contained anger. Ambassador Thrakenar, Josiah began, his voice measured. I suggest you reconsider. Reconsider what, human? Thrakenar's laughter echoed through the hall. Other delegates joined in, some uncomfortable, others genuine. Look at her. She is barely large enough to reach the table. How can such a fragile creature represent a species? Perhaps humans are weaker than we thought if this is your finest negotiator. Kennedy raised her hand, stopping Josiah mid-protest. She stepped forward, her boots clicking against the polished floor with a confidence that silenced the nearest whispers. You're right, Ambassador, Kennedy said quietly. I am small by your standards. Fragile, even. Thrakenar's eyes gleamed with triumph. Finally, some sense from, I'm 5'2" and weigh 115 pounds, Kennedy continued, her voice growing stronger. I require less food than you, less water, less oxygen. I can fit into spaces you never could. I can survive on planets where gravity would crush your exoskeleton like glass. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing a network of scars that crisscrossed her forearm. These are from Proxima Station. 3 years ago, during the Syndicate War. Josiah's expression shifted from anger to something else, respect, perhaps, or memory. He'd been there too, though in a different unit. The Syndicate brought a Titan-class war machine to the station, Kennedy said, her eyes never leaving Thrakenar's. Do you know what a Titan class is, Ambassador? It's a bipedal assault platform, 80 feet tall, armed with plasma cannons that can vaporize a building. It carried enough firepower to level the entire civilian sector where 5,000 people, humans, Vess, even some Krell refugees, had sheltered. The chamber was deathly quiet now. Even Thrakenar had stopped his posturing. My unit was ordered to evacuate and regroup, Kennedy continued. Command said the Titan was unstoppable, that we should save who we could and abandon the sector. But I looked at those 5,000 faces, mothers holding children, elderly who couldn't run, wounded who couldn't walk, and I knew someone had to buy them time. She touched the scars on her arm, then traced another along her collarbone. The Titan's armor was impenetrable from the outside, so I went inside. Josiah spoke up, his voice thick with emotion. I was on the evacuation team. I watched her go. We all thought she was committing suicide. The maintenance hatches were designed for repair drones, Kennedy said. Too small for any soldier in standard combat armor. But I ditched my armor, took only a plasma cutter and 3 thermal charges, and I crawled inside that machine while it was walking. She stepped closer to Thrakenar, craning her neck to meet his eyes. Do you know what it's like inside a Titan-class war machine while it's firing, Ambassador? The heat is unbearable. The noise, every step, every shot, feels like it's tearing you apart. I crawled through spaces so tight, I had to exhale completely just to squeeze through. I burned my hands on the reactor casing. I nearly drowned in coolant fluid. Kennedy's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but in the silence, everyone heard. But I was small enough to get where I needed to go. Small enough to plant those charges at the reactor core. Small enough to crawl back out through the exhaust vent before the whole thing went up. She pulled up her other sleeve, revealing burned scars that covered her entire arm. These are from the explosion. I barely made it out. Spent 3 months in regeneration therapy. Thrakenar's mandibles had stopped clicking. His posture, once domineering, had shifted almost imperceptibly. Those 5,000 people evacuated safely, Josiah added. Thanks to her. Kennedy turned back to the contracts on the table. You call me fragile, Ambassador, and perhaps I am. But I've learned that fragility is not the same as weakness. Sometimes the smallest key opens the largest door. Sometimes the smallest soldier wins the largest battle. She looked up at him one more time. Now, shall we continue these negotiations, or would you prefer to continue discussing my size? Because I assure you, I'm more than capable of sitting at this table, whether or not I can reach it comfortably. For a long moment, Frakanar said nothing. Then, slowly, deliberately, he inclined his head, a gesture of respect among the Krell, rarely given to other species. I apologize, Negotiator Martinez, he rumbled. I judged the blade by its sheath, not its edge. That was unwise of me. He settled into his seat, suddenly far more attentive. Please, let us discuss these contracts. I find myself very interested in what Earth has to offer. As the negotiations resumed, Josiah leaned close to Kennedy and whispered, You didn't have to tell them all that. Kennedy smiled slightly, reviewing the first clause of the contract. Yes, I did. Not for me. For everyone they'll underestimate after this. Sometimes a story is worth more than pride. By the end of the summit, Earth had secured the mineral rights with terms far more favorable than projected. But more than that, word spread through the Galactic Council. Humanity was not to be underestimated, no matter their size. And somewhere in the vastness of space, a small woman had reminded the galaxy that heroes come in all forms, and that sometimes the smallest among them stand the tallest.